Thanks, Phil. All right, well, my name's Peter Allen, and go for it, yep. I've lived in a lot of places in the United States. I'm 31 years old, and I've lived in 28 different dwellings in 12 different states. The average residence time in one place is just over a year. I've moved a lot, and I've lived in a lot of different places. I was homeschooled and raised by my fundamentalist Christian mom, homeschooled, reading the Bible every day, and my free market banker dad, who I listened to Rush Limbaugh every day. And so I had a very constrained perspective on the world when I left high school, but I went to a state school. My parents were okay with that because I went to the business school, but I dropped out after the first semester. Didn't know what I was doing, but I learned a lot. I started researching all sorts of stuff that I'd never come across with before that, and I started learning where my food came from. And I'd always eaten meat before that, and once I learned about where my meat came from and the practices, the inhumanity of it, and also the environmental impacts of it, I became vegetarian. And in that process in college, I was kind of expanding my worldview, and I was really learning about what was going on the planet, pollution and agriculture and all that. So I ended up getting a degree in environmental science. And the problem with environmental science is it's great, but it teaches you how to clean up pollution spills. It doesn't teach you how to fix the reason you have pollution anyway. So I came to one of the only interdisciplinary grad programs in the country here at UW-Madison. Studied really cool ecology, restoration, rode my bike everywhere. Went to the farmer's market. It's really cool here because we get local fresh fruits and vegetables. The problem with that is that's not where all of our bulk calories come from. Our bulk calories typically come from grain, and grain involves the destruction of intact ecosystems, and it's the number one driver of climate change, carbon emissions, and species loss. So I was into restoration ecology, restoring the ecosystems that were here before. The native oak savannas, they're the most productive ecosystems on the planet. They're full of fruit and nut trees and shrubs and massive quantities of grazing animals. They're basically trees and shrubs and grassland. So the way we restore those as restoration ecologists is we take out the invasive species, the ones that we don't want there, so we use hand-to-hand combat and chemical warfare. And I realized that there had to be a better way to restore functional ecosystems. So I was researching why were those ecosystems here before? Well, the Native Americans managed for oak savannas for nearly 10,000 years here through burning, hunting, and horticulture. If you take a piece of land and let it go, it doesn't go to oak savanna, it goes to woodland, a pretty low diversity, low productivity ecosystem. So what was going on, before the Indians were here, we had megafauna, mastodons, sloths, camels, horses, the whole bit, and they controlled the vegetation and kept the woods down. Scattered woodlands and grasslands supported massive numbers of animals. So I had this idea, if we're going to restore savannas, we have got to, you do it as a farm, and we've got to eat the products off of it. So I drew up this idea for a savanna farm based on planting fruit and nut trees and shrubs and grazing animals. Took it to a friend, and he said, oh yeah, that's like what Mark Shepard does. And I said, who's Mark Shepard? He's got a 110-acre farm in the Driftless area modeled on the oak savanna. When I found out about that, I flipped out. I called him up. I said, can I come out here? I was doing this research for my dissertation. I said, can I come out and do a case study on your farm? He said, sure. I went out there with a tent for 2 days, and he was cutting grass every day. And I was like, what are you doing? Why don't you get some cows? You don't have to burn the diesel, and you get beef at the end. He was like, I don't have time for cows. Why don't you get cows? So I bought some cows. I had never raised cows before. I only had to chase them down the highway a couple times to get them back. And I never came back to Madison. I lived in my tent that year, and I got cows, and then we got turkeys and pigs and chickens and all that kind of stuff. And so what we're doing is using these animals to mimic the patterns that the megafauna once had when they were here, for the last 35 million years. So we finish pigs, we run pigs in chestnut orchards, hazelnuts, apples, pears, plums. These guys live the life, eat better foods than most of us do. And all the animals are really critical into restoring the functionality of these ecosystems. So my wife and I, we got married on the farm, and then we bought our own farm just this winter, and we're getting it going. We're calling it Mastodon Valley Farm for obvious reasons now, right? And so we're getting all our animals in. So we got goats and cows and pigs and chickens and turkeys and all that, and we're trying to figure out the ways to put them all together in ways to mimic these old things, to ramp up nutrient cycling, sequester carbon, build soil, filter groundwater, and all those wonderful things. We had been living in a tent. We built a yurt out of saplings that we cut for less than $1,000 total. We hand did the whole thing. We finally got that up, and it's pretty awesome to not sleep in a tent when a thunderstorm. Well, it's a big tent, a bigger tent. I can stand up. So, but this is what we eat every day. It's the best food on the planet, and I just want to say that What matters the most, more than whether you drive a Hummer or a hybrid, is what you eat, the cumulative decisions that you make three times a day, and make the right ones. Thanks.